We took that $30,000, and if you've ever seen the movie Batman, where the Joker slides down the big pile of money and then turns around and lights it on fire in front of the mafia, that's what we did in the form of marketing dollars with that money. And that was the first light bulb moment where our business pivoted, and we said, for us, the second light bulb moment was, so we scaled this business up to doing 30, 40 flips a year. And then one sunny Friday afternoon, my boss said, hey, meet me over at Starbucks. And I was excited to meet with him because I had a phenomenal day, right? And before I could tell him how great of a day I had, he fires me. And then I discovered this unique tool called real estate.
What advice would you have for someone that's got a W-2 job, they want to do a side hustle, they want to get something going?
The biggest problem people have is they're comfortable. I was figuring out that a lot of these business hacks that made me successful in business also made me successful in my personal life. The core values in a life partner, building a culture in your business, building a culture in your family, having a set of rules and guidelines to go by. And that was a goal that I'd set 3 years ago that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to accomplish. And through a series of events.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I'm thrilled that you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the dynamic individual I'm interviewing today. His name's Brandon Cobb, and he's from Nashville. We were just talking about that. We were joking about how the city kind of shuts down when the snow hits, which was yesterday. I was supposed to be there. My flight got canceled. Thank you, American Airlines. I hate American Airlines, but you probably shouldn't have said that publicly, but I do. But anyway, Brandon is the owner of HBG Capital. The website is hbgcapital.net. And, I'm not going to steal Brandon's thunder. I'm going to let Brandon tell you what he does. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man. It's good to see you.
It's good to be seen. By the way, Brandon also runs a podcast called the Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio Podcast, which he's going to interview me on here shortly. So you'll want to check that out as well. But good to see you, my friend. Tell us your story. I know you started in medical device sales. I've got, in fact, I know quite a few people that either have done that or still do that. And I know from my experience that it can be kind of brutal because a lot of times you have to go to the hospital. You're there sometimes while they're doing surgery or before, after surgery, whatever. And there's a lot to it. But you transition from that to real estate. So tell us your story.
Well, if you told me 8 years ago that we'd be inventing these new affordable neighborhoods, I'd have looked at you like you had 8 heads. I never had any aspirations to be an entrepreneur. In fact, medical sales was my dream job. Kid in his early 20s, wearing scrubs every single day to work, rubbing shoulders with orthopedic surgeons. What's not to love? It took me years to break into that profession. I had no desire to get out of it. And like a lot of guys in their early 20s, when they come out and they get their first corporate job, mine was at 24 years old. All I wanted to do was make my parents proud, get a nice stable job. And I had it all for a kid in his early 20s. I had the 401k, I had the company car. I think
it's good money too.
Oh yeah, it's really good money.
Yeah.
Especially if you can get in with the right companies and the right products. I did a lot of knees and shoulders. So it was a lot of athletes that these doctors were working on. So like ACL reconstructions, rotator cuff tears. And it was pretty cool being in surgery every day.
I tore both my rotator cuffs and got PRP.
Yeah.
Platelet-rich plasma, and actually solved it, fixed it. I couldn't do any bench at all, but that fixed it. Anyway, I digress. Please keep going.
Now, biologics is where the whole industry is going. I got the PRP in my hair, too. That'll help stimulate. It's one of the ways I got my wife to marry me.
Really?
I had to regrow my hair.
Really? Wow.
But so was in that industry. Didn't have any motivation to be a real estate entrepreneur. And then one sunny Friday afternoon, my boss said, hey, meet me over at Starbucks. And I was excited to meet with him because I had a phenomenal day, right? When you're a sales rep and you have a good day, that's all you want to do is tell your boss. And my boss was somebody that was like a mentor to me. I looked up to him. He was teaching me the ropes. My first medical device sales job, right? Worked really hard to break into the industry. And before I could tell him how great of a day I had, he fires me.
No shit. Wow.
And the feeling I had that day was just complete shock.
Why?
Well, because I had the Rookie of the Year Sales Award. I was busting my butt at this job. I loved what I did. I was passionate about it. And for whatever reason, he had to let me go. At the time he told me that he just didn't think that I was a fit for the organization. And he even told me, I hope you learn something from this. And, it was tough because I had my whole identity wrapped up in that profession. If anybody's ever lost a job before.
I want to talk about that for a second. Just let me just say something to that. A lot of people make their business or their job their identity. And if they fail, if the business fails or the job fails, then they are what? They're a failure.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It's got to be your vehicle. And it's a very common dynamic, because businesses fail. You lose jobs, but if it's your identity, it can be, really debilitating. I guess it was in your case then.
No, 100%. I know a lot of entrepreneurs face that. I didn't know that at the time, but I was just soul searching, man. Right. And so I, luckily had followed in my parents' footsteps, got the stable job, lived below my means, had a little savings set up. I said, okay, it's not the end of the world. Let me start this entrepreneur thing. And so I said, well, what could I possibly do? And I'll never forget. I watched.
Were you married already or no?
No, man. I was, I think, 26, 27 at the time. But I watched an episode of Shark Tank and I saw this guy get a deal selling potatoes with a message on them to people. And I said, if this dude can get a deal on Shark Tank for a potato message business, surely I can figure something out. So that's what started my entrepreneur journey. I started a medical device sales course on how to break into the industry.
Oh, you did?
That
for people to get the job.
People to get the job.
But it didn't make it.
No, it didn't make it. It flopped. I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins, so I became a life coach.
Oh, did you?
And Rod, you're going to be shocked to find out that not many people want to take life advice from a 27-year-old.
Well,
so
yeah, there is that too. We talked about that briefly before we started recording, guys, that, I spent 20 years with Tony. I was on his team for 8 years. And Brandon said he's consumed every bit of information. And that's a lot because Tony puts out a lot of stuff. But anyway. So you were going to be the Tony Robbins in life coaching.
That didn't work out. Completely flopped. And I had an online motivational blog. I was like, I like this motivation stuff. Maybe that completely flopped. And then I discovered this unique tool called real estate.
How?
And I was going
How'd you discover it?
I was going to meetups,
Oh, gotcha.
and I'd read some books right while I had a job and said, so I was kind of doing all these things sort of at the same time, trying to figure out what was going to work. So I had the course, I had the blog, the life advice, all this stuff. And I met a gentleman, he goes by Alex. His name's Vigif Sadoff. He's still my partner to this day. We're the only two that showed up to a Rich Dad, Poor Dad cash flow quadrant meetup.
Oh, no kidding.
And we just hit it off the first 30 minutes. He had a big portfolio in Colorado Springs. He was looking to get an operation set up in the Nashville market. And so we just hit it off. And I said, well, what do I have to lose? And so I went around and I started putting up those We Buy Houses signs on telephone poles. And let me tell you, for the first few phone calls I got from the police, I about freaked out. Oh my God, I'm going to jail. And I literally called him. I was like, I can't do this. Ended up getting a call off one of those signs with a gentleman who was facing foreclosure, and we got a pretty good deal on this house. And so I sold all my retirement accounts, paid the penalties, mustered up all the cash that I could, and I went 50-50 in with my partner to buy this house to flip it. And that was my first taste of getting into real estate.
So you bought a house with every dime you had, 50-50 with this partner who's still a partner.
Yep, still partners today.
And you flipped the house. You make some money.
Made $30,000, and we took that $30,000. And if you've ever seen the movie Batman, where the Joker slides down the big pile of money and then turns around and lights it on fire in front of the mafia, that's what we did in the form of marketing dollars with that money.
You blew it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny about the signs, we used to put those We Buy Houses signs, and you'd get the county that'd say take them down, or they'd threaten a citation. And so you'd come up with these unique strategies of having a phone number they couldn't trace or whatever. But anyway, that's really funny. So you blew the money on marketing because you were going to double down on the flipping. So then what happened?
Well, so that marketing, we didn't necessarily blow it. We spent it, but it produced 3 or 4 more deals.
Oh, it did. Oh, so you didn't. Okay, you didn't. You spent the money, but it created
more deals.
Gotcha.
And so I think we made $21,000 on a wholesale deal. We had 2 more flips. We made $25,000, $30,000 off, and one new build that we ended up not knowing was going to be a new build. It was a rehab that turned out to be a tear down. It's funny when you get rid of all the walls in a house and see the termite damage is not just eating the floor joists, but up to the ceiling joists and the walls. You go, oh my God,
this is in
Nashville. Tear this house down. Yeah. So the fourth deal I ever did was actually a new build.
Wow. That's a seminar. That's a seminar. That's really funny. That reminds me of a house that I bought in Fort Myers once where I thought I'd seen it. Oh no, my acquisitions guy thought I'd seen it, and I thought he'd seen it. Neither one of us had seen it. I pull up, and there's nothing from the top of the ceilings up. It's just daylight, all concrete walls, and we made money on it, believe it or not, crazily, but we had to rebuild it as well. So that reminds me of that. So when did you make the shift to land?
So we scaled this business up to doing 30, 40 flips a year for the first couple of years. Fantastic. And then we saw the writing on the wall when we had a home that had half burnt down. So probably similar to a home that you had, where the whole top floor was crispy.
Gotcha.
The bottom floor and the foundation were not really that bad, and we could buy it for less than what the land was worth. And so we knew it had to be a deal because the foundation was good and the first floor framing was good. So we hired a structural engineer. We brought the city out, and we just cut out all the plaque stuff, reframed up, and we rebuilt that home in about 5-6 months. At the same time, we had a full gut renovation right around the corner. I mean, like historic district, gutting it down to the studs, everything, addition, adding on. And it took us
a lot of work.
Oh, it's so much work. It took us 8 months to do that rehab, where it only took us 6 months to do the new build. And we made 3 times as much money on the new build. And that was the first light bulb moment where our business pivoted. And we said, why are we flipping houses? We need to be building houses. And at this time, we had in-house general contracting firm, HBG Construction, that was able to go and execute these things. And we would, cut out the GC, cut out the middleman.
So you had
we
a
were able to make money.
GC that qualified the construction company, or was one of you a GC?
So I'm actually a general contractor.
Oh, you are?
Yep,
you got
my license.
Good for you.
But I don't like to, I like to hire the people that know what to do.
Right.
I don't like to be the guy that's out there going to it. I joke that I've screamed at 5 grown human beings my entire life, Rod. 4 out of those 5 while I was managing construction. I learned real fast what I was not good at, and I got out of it as fast as possible.
But what's good about what you did is you can qualify the company, and so that's a big plus. I'm trying to get my son to get his GC license right now because I want to build down here.
Yeah.
But okay, so what was your first foray into building after that house that you had to rebuild?
So we scaled that company up, and we were able to then transition to a new construction. And then we ran into a capital problem, right? We only had so much of our own money, and I'd raised a little bit of private money, hard money lenders and stuff like that, guys who lend professionally. And we need to figure out how to get all of our down payments out of these houses, how to stop these monthly interest payments, these large monthly interest payments.
Hard money is expensive.
Yeah, it was very tough on the business. And so that's when HBG Capital was born. And so when we were able to go and raise private funds for all of our new builds and pull all of our own money out and use that to grow the business and hire people and help out with cash flow, that's when things really took off. And for us, the second light bulb moment was, why are we spread out doing all these onesie-twosie new builds? Why can't we do it in the same area? Oh my gosh, it makes more sense. You've got scale, the contractor pricing, bulk materials, and we made sure to go and do it in the foothills of the national home builders. So in the areas where they were building, that's where we wanted to build in. And we were getting ready to go vertical on a neighborhood when we got a knock on the door from a Wall Street funded national home builder. And they said, hey, we really like your development. Can we buy it from you? And we said, no. It's not for sale.
Until they named a price.
And they said, well, we're going to give you this for it. And we said, it's for sale now.
It's amazing.
And do you want the one across the street? We'll sell you the 40 lots across the street too. And we got all this other land. So we started getting bought up out of all of our land positions from these national home builders. And this happened around 2021, 2022. And we said, God, man, if they're willing to give us these kind of deposits and we can pre-sell them, and they can build for so much less than us, it doesn't make sense to build the homes, shorter time horizon. And so that's how we got into doing land development for these affordable housing communities.
Now, when you say affordable housing, You're talking about smaller homes.
Yeah, little A, not big A. Big A is affordable housing communities. That's Section 8 government housing.
Right.
We're talking about what I think is the most undersupplied, highest demand real estate product in the country right now. And I know, you do a lot of this, is you provide housing for those people that need it. Your blue collar workers. We do it for first time home buyers. So we aim for that product.
$300,000 price point, something like that.
Yeah, $2,000 per month mortgage, because that's what your average median income family in America can afford.
Oh no, that's very interesting. So right now the model is buy land, entitle it, and flip it to these national home builders. Is it my understanding that at this point you bring the builders in before you even tie up the land? Or what's the sequencing of your model?
Yeah, so we've got a framework that we work in, so we know what areas they want to be in, right? We know what the buy box is. But during our due diligence period, we're doing a few things. One is we're lining up our buyer, and we're making sure that.
So once it's under contract, you're in due diligence. That's when you go grab the builder.
That's right.
Gotcha.
We'll go and say, we got it. This is what we're able to get approved here. Are you interested? And that'll tell us if we don't have any interest in it. Then one, we did a bad job of picking our area and the parcel in our market. But most of the times we've got multiple interested because they all have the same buy box, right?
And what specifically? How do I want to word this? How do you make it attractive in the affordable component? Is it smaller lot sizes? What do you do to make it appealing to a builder for that price point that's 300-ish what we call affordable housing to sell?
Yeah, a lot of the lots they're doing are 8,000 square feet.
They are.
So they're not that big, right? Like we just did a community, 74 homes. They're all about 30 feet wide, 55 feet long.
Wow.
So they're not ginormous
That's
homes.
Really small.
Yeah, a lot of builders have started building smaller homes since interest rates went up. Because that's the only way they can get
two-story homes
or
single? Oh, they're two-story homes. So these are very, very small lots. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, our whole thing is density. Like we add value to so many parties in what we do. It's one of the reasons I love what we do so much is we've got the owner of the land, the seller, who they've got 20, 30 acres or whatever, and it's not worth what they want. And so we come to them and say, hey, how would you like us to pay you this for? I'll give you an example. The 74 homes that we just finished up and we sold to a builder, we went to them and they knew their land was worth maybe $300,000, $400,000. And they knew that. And I said, if we could pay you $700,000, would you be interested? And they're like, well, yeah, how are you going to do that? And we explained the process. We're going to force appreciate the value of your land before we buy it by getting it approved for these 70, 75 homes.
Increasing the density.
Okay,
so that's your model. Okay, interesting. Now, and you told the seller more money because they have to wait for that process.
Yes.
Is that correct? Have you ever involved the seller in a deal to minimize your outlay?
Yeah, we've got one right now where they're contributing the land as equity, and we don't even have to come out of pocket anything.
By the way, guys, that is a cool strategy where you go to an owner and say, listen, I know you've had this thing forever. If you participate in this deal, you'll make more than you would if you sold it because you'll put the value of the asset. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this on this diatribe I'm trying to say here, but diatribe rather is you contribute the land as the equity. Not only will you get that back, but you'll get profit on the deal because you have a percentage of the deal. Yes?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
And if anyone's done these types of deals or maybe in this space, what they may not know is the builder will give you a 15-20% deposit on the sales price. So and that's free money to use towards the development. Free money, it goes in second position. And so if you look at taking that deposit and using it towards the development and you have the owner contributing land's equity, sometimes you're getting 40% LTV on your loans.
No kidding. Yeah, and it's no out of pocket, really. I mean, that kind of a deposit will pay for your entitlement.
Yep.
Wow, that's a cool strategy. So, do you ever plan to build again, or is it just going to be the development of the land? And I mean, that model's obviously working right now, of course. Yeah, and I think it'll continue to work because there's such a huge demand.
Yeah, we'll definitely build to rent. I love that asset class, and we had so much stuff that we were going to do build to rent in 2022. right before rates went up, and nothing penciled for that. So
Right.
luckily we didn't buy anything and start building with that exit in mind. But we definitely want to build again and do the BTR, because there's multiple exit strategies with this. As long as we control the land, and it works for anything. Like
Right.
we've got some stuff for multifamily that we're working on. We've got some
Okay.
stuff in commercial and office space that we're working on. We got some mixed use stuff. So this strategy works for any asset class. And what I like about it is the multiple exits. We can just sit on the land after we force appreciate it and just hold it, or we can pre-sell it and develop it and sell it to an end buyer, right? With all the roads and utilities ready to go vertical. Or if we have to, we can be the builder and we can build it, or we can build and hold it, BTR. So there's 4 exit strategies that we can utilize, and it doesn't matter what the asset class is, right? Right now, we're just noticing that there's a huge demand from national home builders for finished, ready to go lots. And that's why we're capitalizing.
I had heard that new home sales had kind of fallen off a cliff. Is that you're not seeing a softening in the sales?
New home sales have fallen off a cliff, but
Okay.
the problem is you've got these big forces that are pushing against each other, and these builders, these are Wall Street backed firms that have to grow. They have to hit these 20-25% IRRs, and they haven't bought anything 2 of the last 5 years. COVID and the interest rate rise, 2020, 2022. So 2 of the last 5 years, they've bought nothing. And they have to catch back up with those growth projections. And so they'll acquire land just to hold it and
Just
have
to
it on
land
its
bank it.
books
Yeah.
and have it ready to go.
Gotcha.
They're looking at filling their pool of land to pull from, and they don't have enough of it.
That makes complete sense. Well, that's really cool. That's very cool. I think you've got a hell of a niche there. And Nashville, if there was a market in this country that I would do what you're doing in, it would be somewhere like Nashville, just because, you got the good old boy network as well. You build the relationships with the county and the city and the municipalities, and that certainly exists. Because I had a lot of assets in Memphis at one time. I don't even want to fly over Memphis.
I was about to say, I was like, man, God bless you for having to manage that. I'm from Memphis originally, so I'm very familiar with it.
I don't even want to fly over Memphis airspace. I feel like my IQ drops if I do. But I do love Nashville. I love that half of the state. I love Cookeville and Clarksville and all that over there. But so I've got family in Cookeville, actually. So let's shift gears for a minute, because you started out flipping and wholesaling. And I have a lot of listeners on my show that haven't done anything yet, and they know they want to start something. What advice would you have for someone that's, got a W-2 job? They want to do a side hustle. They want to get something going. Maybe fear has held them back. Maybe limiting beliefs has held them back. Speak to that listener.
The biggest problem people have is they're comfortable. When you're comfortable, you're not going to take action. That's why catastrophic events can be a very powerful force in people's life. Hitting rock bottom is a very stable foundation of which to build upon.
Yes, it is.
And so people can get a lot of change from going through these traumatic events doing that. But the problem is people who are comfortable can't, because they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
My advice, and this is probably, there's probably some people who are going to have an issue with this and disagree with it, is burn the boats.
Yeah.
Mentally, before you burn the boats, get comfortable with the worst case scenario. For me, I was okay going back and getting a job with medical device sales or whatever. That was my worst case scenario.
You knew you had that to fall back on.
Yes,
right.
But
okay.
you have to burn the boats. You got to get rid of that safety net, because you're going to be too comfortable. You've got to figure out a way to create enough discomfort to make the change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good. No, I agree completely. The comfort zone's a nice warm place, and nothing freaking grows there. If you're comfortable and you stay comfortable, you're going to fail, period, in life, as far as I'm concerned. And, that magnificent life of your dreams, the one you want, is just on the other side of comfort. Tony Robbins got this quote that is, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of discomfort you can stand. If you take a look at your life and you look back on anything amazing you've ever done. So if you're listening, I want you to do this. I want you to think back and look back at anything that you're really proud of, amazing that you did. And you'll notice that you definitely got uncomfortable. And so just keep that in mind as you're thinking about moving forward. Well, on this show.
Isn't it funny, though, how, if I may interrupt you, isn't it
course.
funny how when we are with our buddies or friends, we don't really talk about the good times. when we're having, lots of fun and all that. We talk about the stuff we went through, the stuff that built our character. That's the stuff that we're proud of most, that we want to brag about. And I think that says something.
It's the same dynamic.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we're talking about here. So I don't know if you know, I do these 5 to 10 minute clips every week called Own Your Power. They're around mindset and psychology. And I know that you're big into that as well. We talk about goals and visualization, motivation, things of that nature. And so, I want to ask you the question, where do you get your drive? What's your why, and what makes you jump out of bed in the morning? Because you're a very dynamic personality. So I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, it was funny. So my business is a tool to build the life that I want. And I remember when I discovered my why. My why right now is to build as many unforgettable experiences with those that I love. Because I see life as a game of collecting experiences. And at the end, when we're on our deathbed, we're not going to wish we had died with more money. We're not going to wish we had died with more things and stuff. When you retire on your memories. And so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to treat memories as if they are an investment. And so the earlier on you invest, the more dividends you get throughout your life. So if I can create these cherished memories when I'm younger, I get more dividends off that memory because I have it longer throughout my life. I'll give you an example. When I was 22, I started these annual sibling trips with my brother and sister. And this was a way of me kind of repairing the sibling rivalry. Younger siblings, they fight a lot growing up. In 22, I was young. My sister was 16. My brother was 18. And we've been doing it every year since. We go on one of their or my bucket list. And it is just, the amount of fulfillment I get from it is amazing. I do these annual mom-son trips. My mom is a history teacher, and she's taught history forever, but she's never had the means to go and travel and see the places. This year, or a few months ago, we got to go to the Alamo in San Antonio.
Oh,
She'd
cool.
never been there before. So I do these trips that my dad, he's big bourbon, whiskey guy, never wanted to spend the money or time to go up and do the bourbon trail and get to see some of his favorite spirits that he grew up with. So we've done trips down to see Lynchburg, Jack Daniels, been up to see a lot of distilleries in Kentucky. So for me, I'm trying to build as many of those experiences as possible before I die.
I love that. We mentioned this briefly before we started recording. Tony Robbins has this quote around the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment, and how achievement really is a science. And I tell people this: if you want to learn multifamily, get your ass to one of my boot camps. There you go. But fulfillment's an art. You've got to figure out what juices you, and your family is what's juicing you. And I can completely resonate with this. My brothers and I went on a trip down the Rhine River in one of these river cruises where we went by 38 different castles, and it was 3 of my brothers and I, and we just had a fantastic time. And unfortunately, that's been several years ago, and we were trying to do one last year and didn't make it. So you've inspired me to push them to do that again. And I'll tell you, I've made a big shift in my life personally to move away from things and focus on experiences as well. I've had all the stupid crap like the Lambo and the Rolls and the watches and all the stupid crap that but the experiences are like you. I love how you described how it pays dividends, because it really does, because you can look back on them fondly. And you just inspired me to do something with my kids. My kids are grown now. I mean, they're in their 30s, but I think I'm going to take them on a trip. So thank you for that. We talked briefly about your team that you put together, because team is so important. And we talked about, how important it is to have an operating system, how important it is how important the selection process is. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Let's talk about the team you put together that you hired, how you went about that, and how you manage your operation.
Yeah. So if a lot of your listeners probably going to have to hire somebody at some point, or if they haven't already, they've been in the process of it. And let me talk about what you don't want. Okay. You don't want to spend the first 4 or 5 years of your business hiring the wrong people, which is what I did. And I paid dearly for it. Right. As a guy who started when he was 27, I wasn't in a management role. So I had no experience hiring management people. And so I had to learn the hard way. lots of turnover, lots of wasted money. And so through this, I'm proud to say we've got a beautiful framework. We use some of the EOS stuff, but there's a few big dominoes that if you get this right, it will make the hiring process very simple. So
okay.
I'll walk through
Let
some
me
of those.
stop you 1 second. He mentioned EOS. So EOS is from a book called Traction. The author is Gino Wickman, and it stands for Entrepreneur's Operating System. And it's what we use in all my companies as well. And it's extraordinary. So, whenever you're to the point where you're actually going to take off your employee hat and put on an entrepreneur hat, go read that book and implement that system. But please continue on the hiring stuff.
Yeah. So big thing is when I'm hiring somebody, I would hire bottom up, which means somebody that's affordable. I had to train them to do everything. And that's how I saw hiring. Now it's top down. That means hiring what I call a strategic partner. In other words, if during the interview process, they can't teach you something you did not know about this role, show you how they can make it better, that's not the right hire. And so I make sure that I'm hiring strategic partners that can teach me how to make the role better and learn something that I didn't know before. That's a big domino. So as far as the process goes, I'll kind of share literally the whole thing. I can go through it pretty quick. Yeah. So we use WiseHire. I love WiseHire because they post it to all the job boards. They take care of monster.com and Indeed, they do all of it. And
what do you mean they do all of it? They compile all the information from it?
Yes. It's one website and they blast it out to all the other job boards for you and they just feed all the information.
So you put your ad in WiseHire and it gets posted everywhere is what you're saying.
WiseHire is a website. You pay for the subscription and you put the job out there and they shoot it out everywhere and they bring in all of the applicants that fill out from the various job boards into that one dashboard for you.
Well, that's nice because you got Indeed, you got Monster, you got LinkedIn, you got all these different places. Love it. Okay.
And they know what SEOs really well and what catches eyes. And so their team will look at your job posting and make recommendations to the title, to what's in the description. They'll even let you, hey, look, this pay is kind of low. If you want applicants, you probably need to bump it up. And so they do this for a living. They know what sells, what doesn't, so they can make recommendations. So WiseHire is first things I have my assistant go through. If they don't have a minimum of the years of experience that I'm looking for, they don't make it to the next level. So if I'm hiring a sales rep, they need a minimum of 4 years in the same industry selling. So they'll drag that over to the next stage, which is qualified. They'll mass email somebody out. Hey, Brandon would like to speak to you about a phone interview. Set it up. So here's the phone interview. First question I ask is, tell me what stood out about the company or opportunity to you. And if the person can't tell me anything, if they didn't do their homework, I immediately thank them for their time and I hang up the phone because that tells me that they did not take the time to actually look us up and do a little bit of research and prepare for the call.
So you have your name of the company in there so they can go to your website and do some homework.
Yep.
And that's smart. That's smart. Yeah. Okay.
Second thing we do, second question is, what do you want to get out of this position that you did not get or are not getting out of your current position? And if they can't have something and explain that, it just tells me they're kind of job hopping, right? They need to be looking for something. Third question is, what do you want to get out of this long term, right? I need to make sure that we can offer them something that they're looking for long term, whether that's growth or a certain amount of money, whatever it is, benefits. Because if we can't, then they're not going to stick around long term, right? Your people make up your business, so it's important to keep a long time. Fourth question I ask is, tell me about your pay expectations. How much do you want to make per year? A couple million? And they always laugh, but I can't tell you when I didn't ask this question in my early days, how many times I would waste my time with in-person interviews and all the way to get to the end to figure out that the pay was off and they didn't read it on the job interview and I just wasted a bunch of time.
Got it.
So we make sure the pay's there. And then the last question I ask is, what questions do you have for me? And based on the sophistication of the questions they're asking me, that will allow them to get on the next level. So that's just your basic filtering process.
Okay, that's a fantastic filter, and I love some of those questions. I've hired hundreds of people.
Yeah,
and I learned something just now. So very impressed with that. What's the next stage?
You want to screen for core values. And you do that, I send a Loom video. If you're not familiar with Loom, it's a piece of software that allows you to click a button and record you talking, and it immediately makes a video link out of it. I use it for all my communication and emails with my team because I don't have to type it all out. It saves me so much time. If you don't know what Loom is, you got to go check it out. So I send them a Loom video and I say, hey, I want you to send me a Loom video back or a video recording. I'll let them figure out how. And I want you to answer these questions. And I'm just screening for core values. So one of our core values is growth. Everybody at the company always wants to grow and get better. So I asked them, tell me about the last 4 or 5 books or podcasts that you read or listened to. What did you learn from it? And that tells me whether or not they're actually looking to learn, growing themselves. And then I'll ask them, like, extreme ownership is another one of our core values. Hey, tell me about a time where you had a project that you were working on with a team that failed. Whose fault was it? I want to hear that story and see if they place blame on other people or if they take ownership of it themselves. So whatever your core values are, create questions around that. And them sending me a video allows me to get to know their personality a little bit. I can, see what they look like, see how well spoken they are, see what their personality's like. So that's
it's
important.
a hurdle. And it's a hurdle. They have, if they're not willing to at least do that, they're not going to. So that's double benefit there. Well, now I have to ask the obvious question, and this is one of the things you discover in EOS, by the way. It's one of the first things you do is come up with your core values for the company. What are your core values?
So we have stewardship, growth, extreme ownership, and integrity and humility.
And humility. Oh, good. Integrity is our number one core value as well, and it should be in any company. And I love your core values. Those are very good. And typically what you'll do, by the way, when you do these core values is you pull your whole team together and get them involved in that process so they have ownership.
Yeah, they create it.
They help create it for sure. Okay. So what do you consider your biggest business success so far? And I'm going to ask you personal success as well, just so you know.
God, biggest business success. This is kind of funny. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, but it does tie with business. We had somebody. There's a girl in our market who I've known since I was flipping houses, and she'd worked at the airport, making minimum wage. I think she worked her way up to like a manager role, and didn't come from a very wealthy background, and you could just tell like you're rooting for her, right? You want this person to succeed. She was reaching out and trying to figure out how to make money and quit her job. And we had done some just free coaching, mentorship to her, because really it was about giving back and trying to help her. Well, she ended up bringing us a deal, didn't know what to do with it, and we ended up making a lot of money on that deal. We took it through all the entitlements, we sold it, and she made over 6 figures on that deal. And part of my deal with her to do that deal was when we closed on it, she had to quit her job, and we had to film her turning in her 2 weeks with her boss and starting her real estate business.
Wow.
And, we made really good money on that deal, but I couldn't even think of the money in the closing because I was so excited being able to film her quitting her job and starting her entrepreneur journey and seeing the path and the journey that she'd been on. That was probably the coolest thing I've ever done in business. And it wasn't even about the money, but it was tied.
It rarely is. That's awesome. How about a personal one?
Personal success.
You're married? You have kids?
Yeah, I've got a newborn who's 3 months old.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Wow.
Personally, I'm really proud of the life partner that I picked, my wife. There was a point in my life where I did not think I was going to find somebody. I thought I was too picky. I had dated a lot of people. I wasn't going to settle, and I was like, I refused to settle. And if that means being single my entire life, so be it. And I've found somebody who makes me a better man, who's a phenomenal mother to our children, who has all of my same core values. It's kind of funny how in personal life and business, a lot of what works in business, like the core values and picking people that have those core values to help your company grow, also work in your personal life. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was figuring out that a lot of these business hacks that made me successful in business also made me successful in my personal life, right? The core values and a life partner, building a culture in your business, building a culture in your family, having a set of rules and guidelines to go by. and, learning how to sell in business, learning how to sell your family to do certain things. I recently had my mom and dad.
Let's use the word influence.
Influence, yeah. Influence, sell, right. Well, I've recently had my mom and dad move here and set up. And that was a goal that I'd set 3 years ago that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to accomplish. And through a series of events and a lot of time and effort, I actually got them to move here.
To Nashville.
And so, yeah, to Nashville. So that was pretty cool, too.
That's cool. Well, listen, Brandon, I want to tell you, this has been a lot of fun. And I really appreciate you coming down and spending some time with us. And I'm impressed with your business model. And again, guys, it's hbgcapital.net. And you want to check out his podcast only because I'm going to be on it. I'm just kidding. But Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. And so I'm sure we'll stay in touch, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.